The Ultimate Fighting Championship is an American organization and is the world's largest MMA organization in almost every measurable metric. The UFC was founded in 1993 when business executive Art Davie proposed an 8-man single elimination tournament after being inspired by the Gracie Challenge fights, where members of the legendary Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu family would take on challenges from practitioners of other martial arts to prove BJJ's effectiveness. The first UFC event was presented under this same ethos, where 8 competitors from 8 different disciplines would compete to find out which one was the most effective. Rorion Gracie was part of this executive team and would push this project as an opportunity to promote Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. In 2001, the UFC would be bought by Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta, and Dana White would be placed as the company's president. Although facing financial and legislative challenges throughout its history, the UFC has since grown to become one of the largest sporting organizations in the world and a multi-billion-dollar enterprise under Dana White's stewardship, producing household names that have breached the sphere of MMA into general pop culture, such as Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, and Chuck Liddell. Fights in the UFC are conducted in a 9.1 meter long, 1.8 meter high, plastic-coated fenced cage. Initially proposed to avoid fighters escaping through the ropes in grappling exchanges as they would in early MMA fights taking place in a traditional ring. The UFC abides by the unified rules of mixed martial arts enforced by the Association of Boxing Commissions and Combative Sports. The unified rules of mixed martial arts uses a 10-point must system, where the 2 to 5 5-minute rounds are scored independently from each other based on a hierarchy of criteria. The UFC is inarguably the most important MMA organization in the world, and its sheer relative popularity has led to the UFC as a noun being interchangeable with MMA in many markets. Pride Fighting Championships was a Japanese promotion running from 1997 to 2007. During the peaks of this 10-year run, Pride would be the largest MMA organization in terms of both popularity and talent on the roster, promoting some of the biggest MMA cards ever. Formed in 1997 by KRS, who notably included Nobuyuki Sakakibara, who would serve as the organization's president from 2003 to the organization's closure. The organization would have a similar origin to the UFC in the sense of revolving around promoting a Gracie, this time revolving around Rickson Gracie, taking on Japanese pro wrestler Nobuhiko Takada, who was also on the executive team. Inspired by shoot wrestling and early MMA promotions, Pancrase and Vale Tudo Japan, as well as the spectacle of K1 kickboxing and professional wrestling, Pride would have a production style with a stronger emphasis on entertainment, with events having opening ceremonies and fighters encouraged to have elaborate walkouts. Pride was also known for running tournaments, heavily inspired by K1's World Grand Prix. This would include both one-night tournaments and multi-event tournaments. Fights in Pride took place in a boxing-style ring, and fighters were permitted to wear certain accessories such as wrestling shoes and gis. In general, fights took place with an opening 10-minute round followed by 2 5-minute rounds, and fights were judged in totality as opposed to round by round, with the most important judging criteria being damage. Pride used its own proprietary rule set which was more lenient than current-day unified MMA rules, notoriously allowing for soccer kicks and knees to a downed opponent. In 2006, upper management of Pride would be involved in scandals connecting the organization to Japanese organized crime, which led to Pride losing a majority of its broadcasting deals and putting the organization under extreme financial hardship. Shortly after, in 2007, Pride would be sold to Zuffa, the then owners of the UFC, and effectively defunct the organization. Pride produced some of the most legendary MMA fighters to ever exist, including Fedor Emelianenko, Mirko Cro Cop, Wanderlei Silva, Kazushi Sakuraba, Takanori Gomi, and Shogun Rua. Dream was the successor to Pride and K1's MMA branch Heroes. Dream ran from 2008 to 2012. The organization was formed through a merger between former executives of the now defunct Pride Fighting Championships and K1's parent company Fighting and Entertainment Group. Dream would hold on to many of Pride's biggest names, including Mirko Cro Cop and Kazushi Sakuraba, with an agreement with M1 which allowed Fedor Emelianenko to compete in the organization. Dream would continue the spectacle of Pride and use a similar rule set, but now consisting of a more familiar 3 by 5 minute round format with more weight classes. Dream was also well known for its willingness to co-promote with other organizations, including partnerships with Strikeforce and One Championship. During its relatively short run, Dream would help establish many MMA greats, including Shinya Aoki, Jacare Souza, Eddie Alvarez, and Gegard Musashi. Dream ceased operations in 2012 when FEG officially declared bankruptcy. If you're interested in that whole debacle, check out my video here on K1. Dream would promote one last New Year's Eve event under the financial backing of Glory Kickboxing, which would be a final goodbye to many important executive figures in early MMA. RIZIN Fighting Federation is the spiritual successor to Dream, which was the spiritual successor to Pride. Founded in 2015 by the last president of Pride, Nobuyuki Sakakibara, RIZIN has since grown to become the largest MMA organization in Japan and arguably Asia. After K1 and Dream owners FEG defunct in 2012, rumors began swirling around Japan that Pride and Dream founder Nobuyuki Sakakibara was looking to make a return to the industry. And in 2015, along with former Pride executive Nobuhiko Takada, they announced the launch of RIZIN Fighting Federation. RIZIN's first event would revolve around a 2-day Grand Prix, which still may be one of the most underrated MMA cards of all time. Outside of the tournament, we had appearances from Fedor Emelianenko, a dream match between Shinya Aoki and Kazushi Sakuraba, kickboxing legends Peter Ertz and Takeru, freak show fights with Gabby Garcia, as well as Bob Sapp vs Akabono. Kron Gracie would also be on the card, symbolic as his father Hickson was on the first Pride card. Not to mention the Grand Prix itself, which is still one of the best MMA tournaments of all time, consisting of a final between King Mo and Yuri Prohaska. RIZIN, much like Dream did, continues the legacy of Pride, holding a limited number of cards each year, but ensuring that they are stacked as much as possible and a spectacle that lives up to the Pride legacy. RIZIN uses a similar rule set to Dream mentioned earlier, but differentiates as they now hold some events in a cage and promote some kickboxing fights under the same banner. RIZIN is credited for helping produce Yuri Prohaska, the Asakura brothers, and Seika Azawa. Strikeforce was an American organization run from 1985 to 2013, founded and headed by Scott Coker. Initially run as a regional kickboxing promotion for the San Jose, California region, Strikeforce would start to pivot to MMA in 2006, with their first event again being headlined by a Gracie, in a matchup between Frank Shamrock and Cesar Gracie. This event would be the first regulated MMA event in California and had the largest live attendance of any MMA event held in North America at the time. Coker's connections to the Californian fight industry led to a sudden and explosive growth period for the organization, eventually leading to the broadcasting rights being purchased by Showtime, firmly establishing Strikeforce as the #2 MMA organization. Strikeforce utilized the unified rules of MMA, but differentiated to the UFC by using a hexagonal cage, as opposed to an octagonal one. They also did not allow elbow strikes to the head of a grounded opponent. Strikeforce is credited with helping popularize women's MMA, as well as helping establish fighters such as Daniel Cormier, Luke Rockhold, Ronda Rousey, Miesha Tate, and Tyron Woodley. Strikeforce was purchased by Zuffa in 2011 and was run independently for 2 years, before ceasing operations and merging into the UFC. Bellator MMA, formerly Bellator Fighting Championships, is an American promotion founded in 2008 by Bjorn Rebney. At points throughout Bellator's run, it would be considered the #2 organization behind the UFC. Bellator was initially run in a tournament format, with each season consisting of multiple elimination tournaments. There are many notable winners of these early Bellator tournaments, including Alexander Volkov, Douglas Lima, Michael Chandler, Ben Askren, and Eddie Alvarez. The success of these early tournaments would lead to a majority of Bellator being purchased by Viacom in 2011, and in 2014, Bjorn Rebney would be replaced as president with former Strikeforce founder and CEO Scott Coker. Under Coker's leadership, Bellator would ditch its tournament format in favor for the more familiar single fight card format. In 2023, it would be announced that Bellator would be purchased by the Professional Fighters League. The Bellator brand is still used on occasion, but its future is still unclear as of writing. The Professional Fighters League is an American promotion founded as the World Series of Fighting in 2012. The organization is unique in that it uses a seasonal format with a regular season and postseason, comparable to more traditional team sports with fighters earning points throughout the regular season with points gained by wins and finishes. At the end of the season, the 4 fighters, formerly 8, with the highest points per weight class, advance into the playoffs, which is effectively a single elimination tournament for a $1 million cash prize. The PFL uses a 10-sided cage and abide by the unified rules of MMA. The PFL has a ban on all elbow strikes, seemingly in line to prevent cuts and injuries that could obstruct with their seasonal format. The PFL and World Series of Fighting have helped establish fighters such as Justin Gaethje, Kayla Harrison, and Marlon Moraes. Pancrase is a Japanese promotion founded in 1993 as a cash wrestling organization by a group of shoot wrestlers, notably consisting of Minoru Suzuki and Ken Shamrock. The original rule set of Pancrase focused on submission wrestling, with no closed fist allowed to the head. The champions of the organizations were dubbed the King of Pancrase, a title which still holds a lot of value in the fight community today. Around the turn of the century, Pancrase would start to resemble more familiar MMA rules, with the unified rules ultimately being adopted in 2016. Historically, Pancrase fights were fought in a ring, but they have since used a cage since 2014. Pancrase is often credited as being a pioneer in mixed martial arts, and often cited as an inspiration for Pride. Pancrase has helped produce notable fighters such as Bas Rutten, the Shamrock Brothers, Jose Aldo, Carlos Condit, and Nate Diaz. One Championship is a multinational promotion based in Singapore and founded in 2011, under the vision of creating a martial arts promotion that would represent and unite Asia. Since then, One has become the second most valuable fight sport promotion only behind the UFC. One Championship is unique for promoting multiple combat sports on the same card, running divisions in MMA, kickboxing, Muay Thai, and submission grappling, hosting some of the best fighters from each of these disciplines. Due to hosting multiple disciplines on the same cards, One utilizes both a traditional ring and a cage, with MMA fights having the potential to take place in either. One uses a familiar rule set to the unified rules of MMA, with soccer kicks formerly allowed but banned in 2016 due to inviting bad publicity. MMA fights in One are judged on the entirety of the fight as opposed to round by round, with near knockout and submissions at the top of the judging criteria. One has helped produce some notable fighters in MMA, including the Lee family and Adriana Moraes. One has seemingly been focused more on their Muay Thai and kickboxing divisions over the last half-decade, with MMA taking more of a backseat in the promotion's activities. Octagon MMA is a Czechoslovak organization founded in 2016 and is considered one of the largest European organizations, known for their well-attended live events and popular reality TV show. Co-founded by the hosts of the Czech version of the reality TV show Survivor, Octagon takes place in a tournament format similar to Bellator's from earlier and supported by an Ultimate Fighter-esque reality TV show. Fights in Octagon, as you'd imagine, take place in an 8-sided cage, using a rule set familiar to most MMA fans with a 10-point must scoring system. Octagon are well known for their well-attended live events and unbelievable production, with Octagon 62 hosting close to 60,000 people in Frankfurt, Germany. Octagon is helping grow the talent in Central Europe, with a handful of their fighters already transitioning to the UFC. Cage Warriors is an England-based promotion founded in 2001 and is widely considered to be one of the top promotions in Europe. Fights in Cage Warriors, as you'd imagine, take place in a cage using the unified rules of MMA, and the organisation is probably best known for being a breeding ground for the UK's best fighters, including Michael Bisping, Conor McGregor, Dan Hardy, Paddy Pimblett, and Tom Aspinall. Cage Warriors' digital streaming rights are currently secured by the UFC, further cementing the organisation as one of the UFC's most valuable feeder organisations. Shuto is a Japanese organization founded in 1985 and is widely considered to be one of the first organizations to host full contact competitions with a rule set that resembles modern mixed martial arts. Even to this day, Shuto in itself is considered to be its own discipline, but since 1989 it has been run as effectively an MMA promotion. Shuto was established in 1995 by popular professional wrestler, the original Tiger Mask. Tiger Mask took the professional wrestling method of strong style, which involved using realistic striking in pro wrestling matches, combined with catch wrestling to develop shoot wrestling, which came from the professional wrestling term to shoot, which simply meant a legitimate non-predetermined contest. Early Shooto had a rule set resembling MMA but was more restrictive to encourage and highlight submission wrestling. In 1994, Shooto would organize the first Vale Tudo Japan tournament, heavily inspired, as you'd guess, by Vale Tudo events in Japan and early UFC events. Vale Tudo Japan would host both Hickson and Hoist Gracie and build the rules and ideologies that would eventually become the basis of Pride Fighting Championship. At this stage, Shooto is indistinguishable from MMA, even now taking place in a cage, but they still have slight differences in their rule set. Firstly, rounds are shorter and there is a complicated scoring system. Shooto as an organization is run effectively as a feeder organization to one championship, with Shooto champions being able to sign directly to one championship and train using their facilities. Shooto is credited with helping produce Takanori Gomi, Jake Shields, and Yuki Nakai. World Extreme Cage Fighting was an American organization running from 2001 to 2010, and is often credited as helping popularize the lower weight divisions in Western MMA. WEC was founded in 2001 by Scott Adams and Reed Harris, who ran the organization as a regional promotion in Lemoore, California. In 2006, Zuffa, the then owners of the UFC, purchased WEC and ran the promotion as a separate organization with its own roster. Under Zuffa, the WEC pivoted to focusing solely on the lower weight classes, many of which were not present in the UFC, and implemented a smaller octagon to accommodate for this. This size of octagon is what is now currently used in UFC Apex events. WEC is credited with producing a majority of the legends of the smaller weight classes, including Dominic Cruz, Jose Aldo, Uriah Faber, and Anthony Pettis. In 2010, Zuffa would merge the WEC into the UFC, marking the addition of the UFC featherweight and bantamweight divisions. Affliction was an American organization running from 2008 to 2009. Affliction was created by the Affliction clothing brand, who were former sponsors of the UFC. After hearing that Affliction was creating their own promotion, the UFC banned its fighters from wearing the brand. As well as the clothing brand itself, Affliction had the backing of Donald Trump and Oscar De La Hoya's Golden Boy Promotions. Throughout their short lifespan, Affliction would partner with M1, which allowed their two cards to be headlined by MMA legend Fedor Emelianenko. Affliction would be short-lived for a multitude of reasons, but notably Josh Barnett, who was scheduled to take on Fedor in their third card, would test positive for banned substances, effectively collapsing the whole card. Shortly after, Affliction would announce the closure of their MMA promotion and go back to being a sponsor to the UFC. Absolute Championship Akhmat is a Russian organization founded in 2014. ACA is highly regarded as hosting one of the best rosters outside of the major American promotions. Alongside MMA, ACA runs kickboxing and BJJ events. Current day ACA is the result of a merger between the ACB and the WFCA, who both had talented rosters. Through the lineage of ACA promotions, they have helped produce Zabit Magomedsharipov, Peter Yan, and Askar Askarov. M1 Global is a Russian organization founded in 1997 and is primarily known for being the pathway for most Russian talent into MMA. Although M1 do host events, historically they have been primarily promoters, allowing their major talent to fight for other organizations while they scouted and developed new talent on smaller regional cards. Often they would co-promote cards to various levels of involvement. In 2018, M1 would enter a partnership with the UFC where M1 would be run as a feeder organization for the UFC, developing talent and laying the infrastructure for Russian UFC events. M1 has helped produce Khabib Nurmagomedov, Fedor Emelianenko, and Shavkat Rakhmonov. On top of these activities, M1 is known for pushing the boundaries in combat sports, hosting medieval fights where competitors wear suits of armor and carry a sword. Titan Fighting Championships is an American organization founded in 2005. Titan FC was founded by Joe Kelly, who was Bellator's director of operations at the time. For pretty much the whole history of the organization, it has been run as an entry-level professional promotion and has helped produce Bilal Muhammad, Anthony Rumble Johnson, and James Krause. Titan FC have openly positioned themselves as a feeder organization to the UFC and have maintained professional relationships with the organization. In 2012, Titan FC would be acquired by the Resurrection Fighting Alliance, and in 2016, the organization would merge with Legacy Fight Championship to form LFA, the Legacy Fighting Alliance, which runs independent to Titan. Invicta is an American promotion founded in 2012 entirely dedicated to women's MMA. The organization was founded by Shannon Knapp, who worked for Strikeforce during the time of its closure. During this time, Shannon received many calls of concern from Strikeforce's female fighters, as at this stage the UFC did not have a female division. Shannon would take it onto her own hands and launch Invicta, dedicated solely to female fighters. Even though the UFC would launch multiple women's divisions, Invicta would and continues to play a huge role in filling the gap for a female fighter's development into the larger organizations. A majority of the female fighters you see today are in some way, shape or form connected to Invicta. KSW, which stands for This, is a Polish organization founded in 2004 and has since grown to become arguably the largest promotion in Europe. KSW was initially famed for its one-night tournaments, but has since transitioned into a split-event tournament format. Outside of this, KSW is also well known for producing some of Europe's best talent, as well as its crazy attendance records, holding the record for the most attended MMA event in Europe and the second most of all time, only behind Pride Shockwave 2002. KSW fights take place in a rounded cage and follow a familiar rule set. However, for some reason allow for soccer kicks and other Pride rules on special no-holds-barred cards. KSW has helped produce Jan Blachowicz, Alexander Gustafsson, and Dricus du Plessis. Cage Fury Fighting Championships is an American promotion founded in 2006 and is considered as one of the top regional promotions in the country. Primarily operating in northeastern United States, it is well regarded as the launch pad for many fighters in that region, including Aljamain Sterling, Paul Felder, and Kimbo Slice. Cage Fury is a bit of an institution of Atlantic City and well worth attending live if you ever get the chance. Deep, formerly known as Deep 2001, is a Japanese promotion that was founded, won't you guess it, in 2001. Deep is my personal barometer of how I know someone is an MMA hardcore. If you start talking to me about Deep's megaton weight division, I know you're legit. Deep was essentially founded as the development league for Pride and has maintained that ethos as the first major step for a fighter of that region, before stepping onto a larger promotion. Deep was one of the first promotions to invest into Korean fighters, and has accordingly helped develop the first major wave of stars from Korea, including Dong-hyun Kim, the Korean Zombie, and Do-Ho Choi. Elite Extreme Combat was an American organization running between 2006 and 2008. Elite XC was founded through the partnership of entertainment and media company Pro Elite and Showtime Networks. Throughout their run, Elite XC would be heavily involved with partnerships and co-promotions, partnering up notably with Cage Rage, Dream, and Affliction. Along with their own very solid roster, this gave Elite XC the ability to host fighters such as Frank Shamrock, Renzo Gracie, Nick Diaz, Jake Shields, and Andrei Arlovsky. Elite XC, however, is likely best known as the promotion that signed popular street fighter Kimbo Slice, and it would be Kimbo who would play a large role in the demise of the organization. In a 2008 card entitled Elite XC Heat, Kimbo Slice, who was far and away the biggest star in the organization, was set to take on Ken Shamrock. However, Shamrock was forced to withdraw from the fight last minute and in stepped Seth Petrozelli, who was a 9-4 light heavyweight at the time and a pretty heavy underdog. However, Seth would knock out Kimbo in just 14 seconds and then go on record to allege that Elite XC tried to pay him to take a dive against their biggest star. This controversy would lead to an investigation by the Florida State Athletic Commission and nuke any chance of investment into the already debt-ridden organization, spelling its demise. Jungle Fight is a Brazilian promotion founded in 2003 and is widely regarded as the top promotion in South America. Co-founded by professional wrestling icon Antonio Inoue, the organization runs also as a kickboxing organization, and accordingly its MMA offerings have the potential to take place in both a traditional ring as well as a rounded cage. Jungle Fight is well known for having some of the most consistently fan-friendly fights, due in large part to the deep pool of Brazilian talent. Jungle Fight has hosted some of Brazil's biggest stars, including Jose Aldo, Alex Pereira, Davidson Figueiredo, and Paulo Costa. Combate Global, formerly called Combate Americas, is an American organization founded in 2011 who focus on serving the Hispanic market. Combate Global was founded and is led by Campbell McLaren, who is also a co-founder of the UFC. Combate operates in both a tournament and single fight format designed to highlight the best new talent in the Americas and grow the sport in that region. Combate Global, primarily due to the greater martial arts landscape of the market it services, tends to have a much more striking heavy roster compared to a more grappling heavy skew in North American promotions. This makes this organization a must-watch if you're a fan of slugfests. Brave Combat Federation is a Bahraini-based organization founded in 2016. Brave is likely best known for its servicing of traditionally underserviced markets, having hosted events in over 30 nations worldwide, the most of any MMA organization. Brave has hosted events in countries such as Indonesia, India, and Morocco, and many countries in the Middle East. As well as taking their events around the world, Brave also have an extremely multinational roster with over 80 countries represented. This willingness to service these underrepresented markets has led to Brave being one of the largest organizations in these areas, and is contributing greatly to the expansion of the sport worldwide.